Hello, welcome back to another lovely episode of the Better Me project from InTakeCreate.com. I'm Anthony McGuigan. I run InTakeCreate.com. It's kind of my little corner of the internet where I write some things and say some words, and sometimes they mean something, sometimes they don't. And I started this show where about once a week I sit down and really take a critical look at myself, my life, my habits, my hobbies, and see where I can make some changes, some big changes, some small changes, and just work on being a better me. Hence the name, the Better Me Project. Comes out every Monday for patrons. Tuesday it goes live for everybody, and then Friday the video version is public for everybody. Patrons get the video on Monday. Last week we talked about healthy social media habits. I forget a lot of what I said, but healthy social media habits is important. I might listen back at that episode and see how it goes. And you might already be noticing that if you're watching the video, you can see I'm in a different place. I'm not sitting by the ocean like I normally do. I'm actually in my van. I was listening over the first 2 episodes, and I've got another one in the bag. Number 3 is coming out, which is the healthy social media habits one. And I'm sick of all the wind in my audio. The wind was crazy, so I wanted to stop recording outside. And it's also raining today, which didn't help. And I'm Canadian, so it's gonna be winter eventually, so I can't always be down at the water. So, test run, I'm doing it in the van. Here we go. So yes, last week we talked about healthy social media habits. This week it's an interesting topic about my recent my recent venture back into therapy, and how this time around it's actually working for me. And I wanted to take a pretty critical, deep thinking look at why it's working for me this time when it did not work for me before. It did the very opposite for me before. I had a very hard time even going to my first appointment this time around because I had such bitter feelings about even the word therapy. So we're going to look at why that's working for me today. And through all of it, I'm just going to get it out of the way at the very beginning. Through all of this, I want to focus on myself and my own mindsets, and what about my mindsets are making the therapy work this time. But it should be stated right at the very beginning that a lot of this comes down to the actual therapist, where it didn't work for me before because there was just me and the therapist didn't line up before. The several ones I tried, I wonder if they were the problem, right? But it just didn't work out, and I'm with a new therapist now who's incredibly compassionate, obviously, and he kind of understands the weird ways I explain things and how I talk, and it's been going well. We formed a good relationship, and that is a big part of why the therapy is working for me this time. It's just, you got to stick in the battle to find the right therapist sometimes. But that's not what I want to make the focus of this piece about. That's a big part of it, but I want to focus on my mindsets and what changed in me to make it work this time. And I've got 3 points on this. We're going to do 3 steps about why therapy is working this time around for me. Enjoy. So the first point I want to talk about of why therapy is working for me this time around is that as far as my self-improvement and my healing goes, my therapy this time is not the only iron I have in the fire. I have multiple different things going on where I'm working on myself. I'm doing this type of thing. I'm writing articles where I take deep dives into my own anxieties and my own mental health. And I'm exploring things on a grand scale. I'm exploring things on a small scale. I'm staying mindful in my everyday life, trying to just recognize patterns in myself and recognize things. And it's all things I've been told to do before. It's things therapists have tried to work with me before. But I started to make these changes on my own before before going to this therapist, where I started to not calm myself down, that wasn't working, but I'm starting to kind of notice things about myself, and notice things about my anxiety, and notice things about my mental health. And by doing that and changing some habits on my own that I don't even bring up with my therapist necessarily, we don't focus on them, they're just projects that I'm working on to better myself. And it helps, my improvement, my journey, my betterment isn't only decided by my therapist, where before the only thing I was doing to help myself was going to this therapist who made me feel like crap every week. And that didn't work. If all of my healing is wrapped up into one task, it won't work. Even if all I was doing was scheduling my life in those half-hour chunks that I'm doing now, I schedule 30-minute blocks to help me stay on track. If that was the only thing I was doing to try to make my anxieties better and try to make my whatever my issues are, that was the only thing I was doing, it wouldn't work. It would fizzle out. If the only thing I was doing to better myself is going to therapy, it would fizzle out just the same as the other ones, regardless of any of the lessons learned in it. And while at the same time it's good that I'm working on so many different aspects at once and I'm able to do it, I think I'm at a sturdy enough point in my life where I can work on different aspects of my health. Where before, I don't know if I was stable enough to do that, where I would overwhelm myself by looking at all of these habits I can change and all of these different things I can do. And that would overwhelm me before, but I'm able to look at it now as a journey and break it down into simple steps and break it down into the right now. And I'm able to focus on so many different things that I can do to just be better. It's almost like starting a Better Me project. All right, that's enough rambling on this one. We're going to move to the second point of why I think this is helping this time around. That being therapy. All right, so the next point I want to make is a big part of what's helping me is having constant reminders in my life for all of this stuff, where I have reminders that I am currently in therapy. I even have reminders, when I look at my schedule, I can see that I have therapy appointments on my Monday afternoons, and seeing that I have that coming up next week, I put it in my schedule as early as I can, because seeing that I have one next week helps me all right, I've got to be paying attention, so I kind of know how to break excuse me, so I know how to break things down for them and talk about different things I noticed through the week. And that's what I'm working on now, is trying to notice how things are coming up, especially as we dive into a lot of childhood things. They resurface in interesting ways. They rear their ugly heads in weird ways. So I got to be able to notice those things and bring them up. Having it on my reminders that it's coming up really does help me. And even reminders to remain mindful about things, that's a huge part for me as well, where I have a sticky note right on my monitor in my office. I have a sticky note that says something along the lines of, breathe, you've made it this far. And those are two very important statements for me, where just simply saying breathe reminds me that I'm supposed to be paying attention to my breathing to calm myself down. And I can do just a big, even if I just do one of those, just reading the word breathe and doing that can help leaps and bounds. And then the second part of that, you've made it so far. I can read this statement and it will ring true to me 100% of the time. I will always read that and be able to recognize just how far of a journey I've done and how difficult steps I've come across before, and how there's much bigger things than what could be stressing me out in my past that I've dealt with. Knocked it out. Nothing's gonna take me down. I've made it so far, I'm good. And while it doesn't always reassure me the way I mean it to, it depends on where I'm at, but just this sticky note that I look at several, like, could be 100 times in the day, just little glance at it, and I go back to what I was doing. And it's incredibly cliche to have a sticky note with a motivational quote on my monitor, and I never tried it before, other than little notes that my wife would write me and little notes that the kids would write me. I'd stick them all over my monitor, or I'd get home and my office would be covered in sticky notes. And that might be where the idea really came from for me. It's just how much those little notes helped. And I might switch it out and I might put different ones there occasionally if it stops being as effective, but they're always going to include something along the lines of breathe. I gotta remind myself to frickin' take a breath sometimes, as difficult as that is. And then some reassurance that means I may feel like I'm faltering right now, but I keep kicking and I keep doing well. And that's a good reminder for me to have. I think I rambled on this one for long enough. We can move on to my final point. Why did I transition like that? We can move on to my final point. I've got one more for this. For my third point, I've kind of titled it a little differently, where I just say focusing on today for tomorrow. And what that means is that I need to just focus on today, the right now, the instant moments, the split seconds in time where I actually am, I don't need to focus elsewhere. I spent a long time in my life focusing on the future, where everything I did was building for the future, setting something up for the future. I've got this goal in the future, this is how I'm getting here. And that's good, that's healthy, it's good to build a future. But I got so wrapped up in it that I ignored my daily life. Unknowingly, there were things going on around me that I just ignore. There's jokes you miss in conversation when you're always thinking about the future. There's bills that come up that you forget to pay because you're so ready to pay next month's bill. There's projects I want to work on that I really like, that have interesting lines, interesting topics and concepts that I just throw to the side and focus on the next big thing or the next stupid SEO tag word that works better. And that's not what any of this is about. Building success tomorrow, it should never take you out of today. And this comes back to my mindfulness practices, where I'm trying to stay in the moment and appreciate everything I actively have right now and not just strive for more. I'm at a healthy enough point. I have a really good job, a really fun career, and I'm able to say, I love what I'm doing right now, no matter where I wind up in the future. I'm going to work hard right now, build some really cool systems, some really cool career habits, and work on that right now, no matter where I'm going to wind up. Where if I still had my older, unhealthier mindset, I would still find a way to hate my job. Even though it's my dream job and it's in the IT field where I always kind of wanted to work for a little while. And I could look at it and say, well, there's so many bigger companies I could work for. There's bigger opportunities. There's bigger budgets I can work with. There's bigger workforces where I'm not the only IT person, and that's very true. But if I spent every day at work thinking about different places I could apply or different places I could go to, even if I'm so focused on the next thing that I can't enjoy right now, where I get to do some really cool things in my job that sometimes I just look past completely, which is unfair to my job. It's unfair to the people who rely on my job, and it's unfair to my mindset because it takes me further away from my goal, and my goal is to be a better me and to be happy where I am right now, because I have, it's not that I don't have any reason to be sad. That's not a good mindset. It's just I have so many reasons to be thankful that I tend to look past. And this one, focusing on today for tomorrow, isn't as fleshed out of an idea as some of my other ones, but it's a mindset shift I'm in the middle of. And it's changing some focuses, it's changing my pacing of my life in healthy ways, but they're big changes for me. And I'm shifting into some different mindsets where I have to remind myself that it's new and it's healthy and it's good. But my brain keeps leaning back to those normal feelings of what's tomorrow, what's the next thing, what's coming up, And I need to find a good balance between those two, because I can't disregard tomorrow, or else things are gonna sneak up on me and knock me down a few pegs. That's life. That's what happens. So I need to find the right balance, I think, of focusing on the today, the focusing on the tomorrow, and the grander scheme. And I think that inevitably that scales back to what I talked about in the first episode of this, in the 3-bucket rule of making sure I've got my priorities so that I can focus on today because the right things are in motion. I'm going to leave that point for now because I think I'll wind up talking myself in a couple of circles if I keep going. But that is essentially what I wanted to talk about today. The 3-ish things that are helping me recognize why therapy is helping me this time. And it might not help me forever. I might hit a little wall, I might hit a ceiling, I might need to shift some approaches. But right now, and where I'm at right now, this therapy is really helping me. And these mindset shifts are setting up a much healthier course for me, a much healthier pace for my life, where I hopefully won't burn out so easily, because I was getting there. I was running down the runway heading towards burnout. And I think this shift into therapy, shift into mindfulness, and shift into the right course set me on the right runway where I might burn out, but I might take off too. And that's the goal. So keep along for the ride, and also let me know how you guys are bettering yourself in your life, what kind of things you notice about your mental health. Because the thing with mental health is we all have it. It's not a term like depression or anxiety or ADHD or bipolar or schizophrenia or anything like that. Those are conditions. But mental health, we all have that, and we can all focus on that. And I will, regardless of any condition I wind up being diagnosed or focusing on or looking at or comparing to myself, I always want to better my mental health. And that's the goal of this show. That's the goal of InTakeCreate as a whole. And I want to leave you with that for this week. And I'll move into my little outro. So thank you all for listening. Please, wherever you're watching this, leave a review, a comment, a like. Let me know what you think of this, and let me know what it makes you think. I want it to be a conversation starter. And also, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts just really helps podcasts get up there and get some more eyes on it. I had a surprising number of downloads for my first couple episodes, and it feels good. It's not about the download numbers. This is totally for me, but the idea that there are other people who could be focusing on their mental health and using this as a conversation starter for themselves, that feels good. Follow me on Instagram. InTakeCreate is the page. And Anthony.McGuigan, you can find me. It's mostly selfies or pictures of my kids. Video podcast comes out on Mondays for patrons. Tuesdays, the audio comes out for everybody. Friday, the video goes live for everybody. I've got new articles posted on Mondays, Wednesdays, and it was Fridays, but I think my Friday articles are now just going to be releasing my podcast. And I'm also going to start posting on Medium. If any of you have Medium accounts and you read on Medium, look out for me. I'm going to take that site by storm. And I think that's all I've got. I think that's it. Awesome. Thank you for listening, for watching, for discussing, and for being. Thank you for being